You are listening to the global network of podcasters dedicated to the pharmacy profession. Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
Hey there, welcome to the NASP 2025 here at the Gaylord Rockies in Denver, Colorado. This is an exciting time where we're bringing together thousands of people focused on specialty pharmacy and the impact on our patients. You're not going to want to miss this. Stay tuned for the coverage of the NASP 2025, brought to you by the Pharmacy Podcast Network. Here with Jennifer Noonan with Accessia Health at the NASP 2025. Jennifer, why is this an important organization and conference to be a part of?
Well, it's important for, I think, all specialty pharmacies across the country, just because of the standard that they uphold people to, that they have such great educational opportunities. But as you know, I'm not a pharmacist, and so I think sometimes people wonder, how did I end up in this environment? And my background is nursing, 25 years of patient-facing. I worked about 17 years in emergency medicine and moved into hospice care. And in that role, started working in the pediatric hospice realm, which shouldn't probably exist, but it does.
It's horrible, yeah.
But in that role, I learned way more than I ever thought I could about the total destruction of families that have impactful, rare, or complex health conditions. And so I, always go back to learning about that. It doesn't matter how much money they had or how well off they were. If you start talking about treatments that are in the tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars, no one can get through that and look the same on the other side. I learned about my position, or about Accessia Health, about 4 years ago, and thought I knew a lot. 25 years of nursing, right? I know a lot. And my first day at Accessia, I recognized it was just a much different type of work, and needed to have a crash course in all things SP. And Sheila was one of the first people that I met in my new role. We had a Zoom call, and she told me all about NASP and immediately told me about the conference, or about the committees. So I joined a committee, and then I joined another committee, and in that I made connections, real good, solid connections with lots of people with the same mission in various roles, and those people helped me understand exactly what I needed to understand in order to be more successful in creating programs for patients. And after several years of just showing up for all the committee meetings, NASP, in their very heavy intention of having a diverse and representative board, they asked if I would join because they had not really had a patient-centered access point on the board. And so I do like to brag about that. Sometimes our meetings can be a little spirited, but it's because we have so many different, we have every angle you could think of, and we don't all always see from the same place. But it's great to have all those different oppositional viewpoints to come together and find the best possible place to land where the patient and its providers benefit.
Jennifer, it's always wonderful to talk with you. We so much appreciate you and the assistance and the sponsorship from the Accessia Health team. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Todd.
Hey, we'll be right back with more at the NASP podcast here in Denver, Colorado.
Accessia Health, a national charitable patient assistance organization, is dedicated to eliminating healthcare barriers for those with rare or chronic health conditions. Through personalized case management, financial assistance, education, and legal support, the organization provides more than copay relief. It delivers a full spectrum of services that address the real costs of care. Founded by patients for patients, Accessia Health helps cover essential expenses like insurance premiums, diagnostic testing, counseling and therapy services, travel, and more. Their inclusive, outcomes-focused approach supports people throughout their healthcare journey, Learn how Accessia Health is closing gaps in care and improving lives across the country. Visit accessiahealth.org today.
And we're back. And Shaun, you brought me another friend of the industry, someone that's been part of the NASP and support of the NASP. Introduce our guest.
Yeah, brilliant guy, friend, Vic Simiano from Sphinx Strategies. He will tell you a little bit more about what he does at Sphinx.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, we do operations and business development, building the highest performers in specialty infusion across the nation. So we've got a la carte solutions from the time you want to get in to the time you want to get out. I'll keep it short for that, but that's why NASP has been wonderful, because intimate conversations, intimate conference. It's been really lucrative for us. So we love the organization. We love the conference.
Shaun, why is it important to constantly give back and think of where do we meet as an entire sector of healthcare within pharmacy, specialty pharmacy? Why do you think it's important to be part of NASP?
I mean, this is where the magic happens. If you want to know about specialty and what makes it special, like Sheila always says, I mean, this is really the heart of the specialty pharmacy community. And I mean, I was talking to a pharmacy student yesterday here, and he was just asking, the same thing, like what she'd be looking for, what are you doing? And it's like, dude, this is the place to be. If you have any interest in this kind of career, this kind of field, there's no better organization to be a part of.
Vic, what's the evolution of specialty and where you're seeing AI really be applicable and not just buzzwords, but something that's actually working?
Sure. We had a great talk on this yesterday. Our panel discussion really kind of highlighted what you can do. I think in specialty, that constantly is on the bleeding edge. The economics of it, you have to constantly do more and more with less and less. So I think we're AI, being the chair of the AI subcommittee for NASP, we get to see a lot of the neat vendors and the exhibitors out here that are doing some great things with AI. Task automation, simple object character recognition, which we talked about yesterday in terms of OCR to speed up intake. Making sure that you're augmenting your staff to really make it look like if you have 10 people, you've got more like 100 to 300 people. Yep. So I think between intake, operations automation, and analysis, I think it's really important that we identify those three things. We had a talk on cell and gene therapy yesterday for patient identification. So I really am looking for AI to do some wonderful things in terms of scrubbing some unstructured data so we can find some more patients and eligible patients for gene therapy.
What's awesome, Todd, bringing Vic here, right? It seems like the theme of the day this year is AI.
It is.
Looking around the room here, I think I'd say more than half of these companies are AI startups, AI companies. Vic's is one of the first here. He's had a booth here for years talking about AI, like way before the other half of this room was here talking about it. So if you want to cut through the noise of like what's real, what's going on, what's hype, what's demo, there's really no one better to talk to about it than Vic. So he'd probably be a great person to talk to.
I didn't pay him to say that. I promise.
It sounds like it, but
This was a non-paid commercial for Vic and Sphinx Strategies. Yeah, this has been a wonderful gathering. We're in Denver. We're going to be in DC next year. Sheila's team has just been dialed into what's important. Policy, advocacy, education, bringing people together. Shaun, what is a challenge that you see from your perspective in moving our industry forward? Has there anything been standing out where you're like, hey, we really need to tackle this to help more patients?
Yeah, I mean, just connectivity between systems. It's been a theme for years and years. Interoperability, like the promise kind of came and went in a way. It's like systems are still disconnected, and AI is another one of these frontiers of all this promise, and it's happening. But I think the idea of all these systems being interconnected and feeding into each other, that was the vision of it. A lot of standards came, and it's not the reality. I mean, you look around and there's just so many bolt-on applications and bolt-on startups, and it seems like everything's just pieced together. And that's even within an organization. It's not even talking about a pharmacy talking to a pharma partner or talking to a provider or health system. Just within the pharmacy, there's so many systems that are all just stitched together and pieced together. So I just see that still being a challenge. And once all that can get solved, there's just so much stuff that they talk about in these sessions that could really come to life and really be possible with better interoperability.
Well, that's also where JB Consulting comes in, because you're paying attention to some of the pitfalls of what's holding back specialty pharmacies and moving forward. And that's what your clients are. They're the specialty pharmacies that are looking for efficiency, and you're building APIs between systems, and you're doing custom interfaces. And I mean, that's important to have an organization like yours that's followed where specialty has been, where we're going, and how to get specialty pharmacies there faster.
Yeah, I mean, we've been connecting these systems for 20 years. Like, any way you're able to do it. So with true interoperability, hopefully we won't have to be stitching them together what we've been doing. But we've been here, JB, for the last 20 years, like I said, doing this. So yeah, we're helping connect them somehow.
Vic, Shaun, thank you so much for being part of the NASP podcast. Appreciate you being here.
Can we throw in a quick plug for NASP and just say if anyone wants to join the tech committee, to reach out either to myself or to Vic, and specifically they want to be on the AI subcommittee.
Yes.
Get in while it's hot.
Get in while it's hot.
We might have to start a second one.
That's right.
But reach out to myself or Vic or just anyone from the NASP team, anyone listening. So we'd love to have more people join the group.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Todd. Thanks, Shaun.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you both.
Better patient outcomes start with the right technology partners. JB Consulting helps pharmacies deliver superior clinical care and enhance patient experiences through smart technology solutions. Our products help pharmaceutical manufacturers improve patient access and build stronger pharmacy relationships. JB Consulting, where pharmaceutical expertise meets cutting-edge technology. Visit jbconsulting.com.
Kevin Kallmes here at the NASP Podcast 2025. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, and excited for NASP.
Hey, you're excited for NASP. I'm excited to talk to you about your poster. Tell our listeners a little bit about the work that you've put in to put this research out.
So this is literally years of work coming together. We've had a lot of posters on AI validations in our tool. We're a literature software, so we're validating, searching the literature, screening, and extracting. This is the first time we've ever brought it all together and done a validation from the very beginning to the very end. So validating literature search, screening, and extraction, so you can do instant literature review based on whatever question you bring me.
So talk to us about how that applies to specialty pharmacy specifically.
Great question, and I think that it actually applies throughout the entire industry, but the very specifics for our growth here. We actually came from academic research, that was my own background, and then we moved into medical device and pharma, and that was the basis for understanding that you actually need this data at every part of the pharmaceutical life cycle, and you actually want that in all decision-making periods. So in specialty pharmacy, maybe the pharmacist themselves is not doing literature-driven research, but every decision along the way that gets you there, in market access, in negotiating prices, everything centers around literature-based evidence, because that drives your understanding of the patient burden, it drives your understanding of the benefits of a drug and also the costs of that drug.
Excellent. So could you see this being a resource for specialty pharmacists that were dealing with, let's say, a cancer patient or HIV or something? Give us an example how this might fit into there.
So I love this use case. I feel like it's a burgeoning one as we've made our tool easier and easier. Being able to just research what is the cutting edge in a certain discipline. The literature is basically your place to go for trustable evidence on drug performance. And so we're tracking that. My favorite application of our software is actually getting updates on a daily or weekly basis on any area. So if you're highly, highly invested in the HIV or cancer area and you want to track that, that is something our software can enable.
All right, listeners listening, you've piqued their interest. How do they reach out to you? Where do they go? Do you have a website or something?
We absolutely have a website. That's nested-knowledge.com. We're here at the we're actually part of a special poster session on AI, so they can come to that if they're at NASP. But otherwise, you can email our support team if you wanted a demo, and we even give free trials. So very happy to get people in.
Nested-knowledge.com. Very
Perfect.
good. Kevin.
Hey, Todd, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Founded in 2012, the NASP was established to represent the rapidly growing specialty pharmacy sector in the United States, unifying stakeholders across pharmacy, manufacturers, distributors, and clinicians. Over the years, the NASP has grown in membership and influence, expanding its corporate and individual membership base to 3,000 plus total members, and over 200 corporate members across manufacturers, specialty pharmacies, PBMs, technology vendors, and patient advocacy groups.
When I get to come to NASP, favorite part of it is meeting new people. I'm meeting up with Pratt from ProChant. Lee, it's good to have you here on the show.
Well, Todd, thanks for having me. Always very excited to attend the annual event here, and super excited to get this kicked off in Denver. Thanks for having us.
You're very welcome. The Pharmacy Podcast Network has loved working with Sheila, Arquette, and the people at NASP. They used to be called NASP. Now they say NASP. And year after year, we've been here for the last 5 years. It's been a celebration to really see 2,100 attendees this year, up from 1,900 last year at the conference. Why is it important to support the NASP? Why are you guys here?
Yeah, great question. First, this is my third time here. I feel like every time that we are here, it continues to grow, and Sheila and their team do a great job. We come for a few reasons and love to support NASP. One, for the industry insights and the visibility into what's shifting in the last year in the specialty pharmacy space, and secondly, for us to be able to get face-to-face with clients and prospective clients and providers to kind of just see what the pains are out there, what's going on, where what solutions are being put out that weren't there a year ago. So really providing those insights for us is just super important for where we sit in the space.
There's a challenge it's a reoccurring challenge. It happens in my original space, long-term care pharmacy. It's the death of pharmacies in the community retail space because of PBM reform. And that is revenue cycle management and how important that is to the lifeblood of organizations. So talk to us about ProChant and what your mission here is at the NASP.
Yeah, so our mission is essentially to make providers be able to provide better patient care. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And when pharmacists are sitting there focusing on revenue cycle instead of, what they became a pharmacist to do.
Right.
I think it really, challenges the organization, whether they're looking to grow or just treat those patients with the best care possible. So ProChant, we sit in a unique space where we're going to provide end-to-end revenue cycle management services, intake, billing, collections, and that's kind of where we're going to be able to assist people that are struggling with keeping up with staff. We can't, I like to say there's a brain drain going on. A lot of people exiting the space, or, you're training people and then they leave for another pharmacy down the road. Whatever that may look like, there's a lot of challenges on the staffing side. And then, once again, it's complex. When you're talking intake, billing, collections, and different payers, different therapies, mixes, drugs, et cetera, we got to make sure that our providers are getting those dollars back in the door.
So Lee, something that's I have committed to as a podcast that is representing our profession and bringing providers together and building discussions that really build trust is the validity of information. You came out with a report to bring in some of that validity based on a study that you have, this new research, and what that reveals. Talk to me about that, because I want the listeners, there's going to be a show, in our show notes, there's going to be a link to this report. This report is extremely interesting. Kind of expand upon that for us.
Yeah, happy to do that. So we partnered in a research study between specialty pharmacies and home infusion providers. I think it was over 100 decision makers that we kind of were asking various different questions, and that's how we were able to build this report. And, what we're seeing is, 73% of those providers or decision makers came back and told us that they're unhappy with current RCM services, whether they're outsourced or, currently in-house. They also are, same number there, 73%. They're not collecting all the revenue that they think they should be getting in the door. And from that, I think a big deal and what we're seeing here and conversations at the first booth sessions yesterday, having a lot of great talks with people that are now looking at new strategies. So whether that be pairing with the outsourcing partner and, not going fully outsourced, keeping some in-house staff, there's various different ways that people can go about doing that. And I think that this study kind of shows the importance of revenue cycle management, especially in this space.
All right, Lee, I'm listening to the show. You've piqued my interest. I really want to understand how you might impact my specialty pharmacy, or really any pharmacy listening in. I want you to go to ProChant.com. Once again, that's ProChant, CHANT.com. Lee, promise that you'll come back maybe on This Week in Pharmacy and we can dig into some other things that you're doing.
I would love to do that. are just excited to be here at NASP and appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and discuss all things revenue cycle with, different providers of different sizes, from anywhere from $3 million to $1 billion organizations. We're able to be a flexible partner and meet whatever needs they might have.
Got to keep that cash flowing. Where they say, cream, cash rules everything around me. Play that.
Yeah, that'd be a great one. Appreciate you, Todd. Thanks for having us.
Hi, this is Mai Tang. I'm a pharmacist and CEO at Two Trees Consulting. You're listening to NASP podcast.
Hey there, we are here at the NASP. We keep meeting up over a microphone. You were on a show a year ago, or maybe even 2 seasons ago.
That is correct. It was last year, and I was very excited to be on podcast for the first time. So now returning this year, and it's really exciting to see you again and reconnect with friends.
Oh, thank you so much. Why is it important to be part of the NASP? What is it about this show that you keep coming back?
I think it's the people. And today at the general session with the speaker, Caleb Spittler, and he's a wonderful public speaker. And one thing that he talked about is, in the age of AI, what is the important part of us? And he talked about connection, human connection. And I think that is what I resonate with this conference, is the connection, making new friends, sharing experiences with colleagues, and keep on, seeing clients are growing and doing great. So I'm really, really excited. And every time I come, not only as an attendee, I now become a faculty, and this is my second year doing workshops and really sharing experiences in the space. And part of me becoming a consultant is really my passion for teaching and sharing and mentoring new generation of leaders. So I really find this as most exciting, and I can relate and feel truly belong to this organization.
I love that. There's passion behind that. There's purpose. Talk to me about the consulting evolution. Are you blending things like getting pharmacies URAC accredited? Or are you blending disease state management specific consultancy? Talk to us about some of the strengths.
Yeah, absolutely. My background is a pharmacist and working in hospitals and PBMs and specialty pharmacies. So I have a lot of knowledge and experience and really connecting the dots. So when I consult with our clients and they are going through ACHC accreditation or URAC accreditation, I can really understand what they're going through, not only be able to offer compliance tip, but also on the operations side, on the IT side. So it's a total solution, and we get them through accreditation, and then after accreditation is the next step. How do we grow? What disease state should we venture into, and how can we bring the best care to patients? So it's an ongoing collaboration, and it's wonderful to see clients thrive after accreditation.
Talk to me about the dreaded audit and how the consultancy sets them up for success of being almost like audit ready.
Yeah, and that's our job. And we help clients, and when they come to us and they think they have everything in place, or they are humble and know what they're missing. So when we get into the nitty-gritty and the weeds of things, and that's where we identify the workflows may not be implemented correctly, and the steps were missing. So we're able to put a solution together, and we conduct mock survey to make sure that customers are ready. We actually just went through accreditation today, and there's only one deficiency, and we're really proud of the results. And in fact, our customers were able to get them through accreditation cycle fairly quickly. So ACHC, our quickest record was 38 business days.
Wow.
And then URAC was under 6 months. So we're really proud of our results. But results, it's important. It's probably one most important thing. They hire us, they want to get accredited. But what's most exciting and rewarding is building connections with these people. We're actually in the trenches with them. So we're not just saying, okay, task driver, and you gotta have to get this thing done. Yes, of course. But at the core of things, they know that we got their back, and we are going through this together. If they're deficient in something, we're rolling up our sleeves and getting it done. So building trust, building partnership, and this is a long journey that we are invested in, and we're investing in our customers and investing in ultimately our patients.
All right, if a listener is listening in, they're having some issues, they want some more information, give them your website so they can reach out to you.
www.2 Consulting. My phone number, it's my cell phone number. Every signature has my cell phone number, 626-348-4179. So they can find me on the website, or they can call me, text me, email me. I pretty much 24/7 on, just like all the specialty pharmacists have to be on call 24/7. Yes.
All right, 2 Consulting, thank you so much for being here again. This is great.
Thank you very much, Todd.
Thank you. Hey, shout out to our specialty pharmacists and pharmacy owners and pharmacy operators out there concentrating on rare disease, specialty pharmacy specific disease state management. Do you understand what the NASP does and the power that it brings to our profession, the protections that it brings, the education that it brings, federal and state advocacy, government affairs committee workshops, grassroots advocacy, education including abstract and poster programs, the CMRO, a NASP partnered journal, education-centered presenter, educational committee and work groups. The NASP is leading the Certified Specialty Pharmacist, the CSP credentials. Look into the NASP. Reach out to one of their members. We're excited to be here at the NASP 2025. NASP board member Nick Calla. Nick, you're a fellow Pittsburgher too, right?
Yes, I am.
Go Steelers. Not so much today, by the way.
Oh, not a good day today.
It wasn't a good day. Nick, gene and cell therapy is still a mystery in many ways. There's such an expansion and innovation of that, and you had a workshop on that today. I wanted you to share some of that with our listeners listening to the NASP podcast.
So today, we basically spent a day speaking about cell and gene therapy. There's quite a few coming to market. The pipeline probably has well over 80 in development in some way, shape, or form. We at Orsini are working with several of those products today. You know, to this point, when you look at specialty pharmacy, we've been a distributor of the product, the logistics coordinator of the product. Now, again, it sounds simple, but it isn't in this particular space. You have a product that's being manufactured, sometimes for a group of patients, sometimes specifically for a patient, depending on the type of cell or gene therapy we're working with. Once that's manufactured, there's usually a very low excursion on that product. They're typically refrigerated or in a cryogenic state. Sometimes we're actually working with one product now that is actually in a warm chain state. So the logistics is where we've been, and it's really the taking in of the product, doing the benefit investigation, etc., the patient support, whatever is needed, and then from there, sending it off to the site of administration. Now, as time has gone by here, what we've gotten into is more and more of these products are going to go into more of a chronic type of therapy. As they go into those chronic therapies, specialty pharmacy, I think, in my mind, is going to play even more of a role in managing the patient from a clinical perspective. Again, this is new in the cell and gene space, but I do see it coming down the road. And then I think the other place that we're going to see, and things that were touched upon during the workshop today, is really around outcome studies and really gathering the information needed to actually do an outcome study, or helping to facilitate gathering the information to make that happen.
I always think of the splitting of hairs of specialists and pharmacists that focus on very specific diseases and become a specialist in HIV or oncology or something. in cell and gene therapy, is there disease states that the science is leaning towards or having more success in one specific disease state versus something else?
I think what we've seen, at least in my experience, in the neurology space, pediatric neurology especially, I think that's where we've seen the majority of quote-unquote success at this point in time. So you have products like Zolgensma from Novartis, and we also have products from Elevidys, from Sarepta, that's had some other bad news at this point, but it had helped a number of patients up to this point. And then you also look in the hemophilia space. There are some gene therapies that have helped, at this point, a small group of patients, although I think that's growing over time. And then if you look in the hematology space with sickle cell anemia, there's an area, I think, where you're going to see a great degree of success with patients with these products. Again, they're very specific to that patient. They have a long incubation period, so a patient is often waiting 8 to 9 months. But then once you do get them onto the therapy or administer the therapy, at that point you're seeing some very positive results.
Nick, how is Orsini reaching patients? Are you working with health systems? Are you working with specialist physicians that are focusing on a specific disease state? Like, how does Orsini kind of build its business in patient care?
It's kind of all the above, Todd, everything that you just mentioned. So it's really focused on, in our world, the provider, and really working with those providers and allowing them or giving them an avenue where they don't have to take on the financial burden of a very expensive medication, and then allowing the specialty pharmacy to really handle that part of it. And then, as we mentioned earlier, coordinating logistics to get that to the site of administration. We partner quite a bit with the payer community in educating them on what cell and gene therapies are, and then really working with the appropriate folks within those particular payers to really get the product approved for a particular patient. And then in our world, we also work quite a bit with the patient themselves, shepherding them through the process, working with the patient advocacy teams in terms of really achieving the desired effect and making sure that patient isn't lost in the shuffle as you're trying to get the therapy ready for them. So really, that's our focus, is how we handle the patient, the provider, and the payer, which are all integral parts of making this happen.
Nick, I love when I get a chance to interview you and talk to you and bring updates to us. Appreciate you being on the NASP podcast.
Todd, always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Hi, this is Reed Kalna with Kaiser Permanente, and you're listening to the NASP podcast.
Reed, NASP 2025. It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you again.
All right, so you've become involved with NASP's certification, what that means for our profession. Talk to us about the involvement, what you've learned by being part of that, and what that means for our industry.
I'm glad you've asked because, I've been on the board now for about 6 years and have various roles. I got CSP certified in 2015. I was number 151, and we're at 2,000 now.
Oh, wow.
And we have a 95% retention rate. So it shows you it's growing, even as a niche specialty pharmacy community, as something that's reputable, valuable, and worth renewing. And the board of directors and those objective information might support that, but work in the SPC booth for the last hour. Everyone's coming up prepared, they're aware, they're sharing case and use studies of how it's helping them, their patients, the payer, and all stakeholders.
Reed, you've shared with me the expansion of your own organization, the successes that you've experienced. I wanted to jump into automation. I may want to talk to you about AI, and you paused me and you said, you know what, the aspect of the part of care that doesn't get enough, talking about is the holistic part of the person, the patient, then themselves. If they're not getting the care that they want because they're an African American community that doesn't focus enough on sickle cell or something happening in women's health. Talk to us about that side of specialty pharmacy.
Thank you, Todd. And I do think is a great question to ask. At our hospital chain right now, it is Care Experience Week. And as a nonprofit, we're really only providing memberships for financial reimbursement as a health plan hospital physician group. So expansion is where you can gain more members, especially if we're already saturated in California like we are, and I work in Northern California. So a few years ago, we got Kaiser and Rising Health. We just got 80,000 members last week in Nevada.
That's incredible.
It's showing people, one, our integrated care. We talk about all the prior auths that some fragmented parts of our healthcare pharmacy ecosystem experience. But when you're on a formulary and you're your own payer and your own provider and you're at your own hospitals and your own physician group, you can focus less on the bureaucracy and more on the patient. I look at the outcomes for our patients, I look at the people, and I look at the process. And the outcomes will come when you re-examine and revitalize and make process improvements in those two categories. And the last thing is, by people, I look at the providers, so it could be especially pharmacists, as well as the patient. They both need the support.
Let's talk about the future of our specialty pharmacists and getting our P4s in pharmacy schools understanding that specialty pharmacy can become a whole career specialty for them. At what point of someone's career that is interested in dialing into HIV or some blood disorder, when do you bring them that, hey, you have an opportunity to get a certified specialty pharmacist track to really dial in and really understand it?
And you asked an excellent question, because when I was in pharmacy school, there was no classes about
right.
specialty pharmacy, let alone very few jobs. We serve 13 million members with Kaiser Permanente, and we have one specialty pharmacy. So there's not going to be a lot of opportunity for it. But there is opportunity to do specialty pharmacy-like roles. You might be in a job where a quarter of your day or a third of your day is doing it. And over time, you can build an affinity towards that workflow, the complex follow-up that allows you to provide high-touch, high-quality care. And you can leverage those hours into applying for the certified specialty pharmacist credential. I think what's nice about the CSP is it can serve the person, the P4, going, or maybe a new grad, give them a track to look forward to. Continued learning, just like anything in life. You can continue learning about disease states you may not have experience with as an intern or whatever job you landed after graduation, but it'll help you become well-rounded, more confident, so you provide better care, you increase your business because of increased patient return. All stakeholders, your company, people are thriving, people appreciate it. So internally, that is one big aspect that's providing value. Second, you look at all the board of pharmacies. I know in my state, I'm an advanced practice pharmacist. You look at residency, you look at a certification, you look at years of experience and specialty, and you can get, depending on your board of pharmacy in your state, enhanced autonomy as a pharmacist to initiate, adjust, monitor, and discontinue treatment. So specialty pharmacists, P4s, looking to what they can do. They don't necessarily have to go straight to a specialty pharmacy, but find a platform where specialty medications are being dispensed and prescribed. Gain that experience. If it's something you want to do, scale from there.
Reed, thank you so much for sharing the insights on the NASP 2025. Look forward to seeing you in Baltimore for 2026.
Here we go, buddy.
All right, thank you.
Take care.
Richard, Brook, back on the NASP podcast. It's great to see you.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to spend time with you, Todd, and learn so much about the different people who come through the podcast.
Yeah, that's what I like about this. It's one of the ways I learn about our industry and what's happening and the differentiation between one sector and another. You've been part of specialty pharmacy for quite some time and support the NASP. Talk to us about things that you're working on right now.
Well, first, let me just say I've been pleased to be here at this meeting. NASP has got the biggest attendance, as I'm sure you've known and noticed today.
Yes.
We've got more posters and abstracts. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my observations on that and some of my other observations on specialty pharmacy.
Excellent.
When I'm not volunteering for NASP, I do run a company called Better Health Worldwide, and we do research, and some of this is fed into what I'm going to talk about today. So, as I was looking at the posters today, and I went to a couple of sessions, we're seeing a lot on biosimilars, as to be expected. And we know now that finally, the ice dam is broken and we're getting more biosimilars on the market and used than we ever did before. But it's not equal across the boards. There are some categories, for instance, in cancer, some of the biosimilar adoption has really taken off. Lantus really taken off. Yet we look at some of the immunologic drugs, and there's been a little bit of a pushback on them. In fact, if you've been following the news, as I know you do, outside of the podcast news, we see a lot of things about how some of the big PBMs in the U.S. have contracted with one particular biosimilar, and that might not be the best or most economical biosimilar. So I think we're seeing the movement here, but we also noticed that the legislative reform is actually targeting a lot of those PBMs. And I think it's going to be interesting to see in the coming months and years what happens as we maybe eliminate PBMs. It's been a big call for it. I was fortunate or unfortunate earlier in my career to work for a PBM, and I got to learn a lot about what PBMs do. And they make money. That's clearly what they do. But are they really giving us better patient care? Or are they giving the best plans and the costs to the insurers and the payers that are actually out there? So I think that remains to be seen. But in the case of biosimilars, where I started there, we're seeing that adoption in some categories and some where I think that the PBMs are actually slowing down the adoption as opposed to any biosimilar that's available there.
So what else have you seen in the research that you've done? You have an interesting advantage where you're coupling so much information about what's happening in the marketplace. Talk to us more about some of the projects you've worked on.
Okay, so I have to limit myself to projects that are publicly disclosable, obviously.
Exactly.
I think one of the things we keep getting calls on right now is the evolving U.S. landscape. You know, I go to a lot of international meetings, and I was at the International Society of Pharmacoeconomics and Outcomes Research in May, just as President Trump was announcing some of his planned reforms, most favored nation pricing. Why are we going to be discounting prices to the Europeans that we're not paying for here? And, you know, as an American, I'm actually in favor of some of that. You know, we see the people in Europe, Germany, where they have a high reference pricing scheme, really adamant saying, wait, you're going to raise our prices? And I think this is really a matter of how do we equate prices. If you're going to have a reference price within your country, well, maybe it should be a reference price around the world. Now, I think we'd hope as a society and people that this reference pricing reassessment would lower prices. I'm not sure that's ever going to be the case. I don't think we ever see that clawback on pricing. So I think it remains to be seen what happens in the future here. But I think that we also have been noticing in our research, and we have a couple of posters here about caregivers, right? The unforgotten people, the unpaid caregivers. God forbid your spouse or child gets sick. What happens to you? And we pay a lot of lip service to it, but a lot of companies, a lot of insurers are so focused on the employee, the patient, they don't really think about the bigger picture. Most of the data that we work with comes from an employer group. So if you're working for an employer, they generally cover the family. So they care that not only does the patient get treated, but what's the impact on the caregiver or the spouse or the parent, especially with a young child. You know, who's going to take that kid to the doctor? It's going to be someone. And I think that's what we need to see happen more. The posters we have are on Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's, and people said to me when we started this initiative, are those really employee-based conditions? Aren't those all Medicare? And that's the assumption that these are age-related conditions, but we all know that as you get a new therapy to market, as we've seen several in the Alzheimer's disease space, these products tend to come with a disclaimer that say they work better for mild patients. So what we're actually seeing is patients going to the doctor saying, you know, I think I got Alzheimer's coming on, and can I get this drug? And there's a prior auth requirement, and the SPs have been great at enforcing those and processing that and taking it forward. But to get to that prescription, you need that diagnosis. And I always think about Alzheimer's because having worked on Alzheimer's disease research since the 80s, I think back, and I can actually remember this, I was always told you couldn't really confirm an Alzheimer's diagnosis unless you cut open somebody's brain and looked at it. So when I see all these diagnoses going up, I think a lot of people are thinking it's Alzheimer's disease. They want that prescription for an Alzheimer's disease product, but do they really have Alzheimer's? And that's why we've categorized our poster as Alzheimer's disease or dementia, because you can confirm a dementia. That's pretty easy. It's the actual Alzheimer's disease, because there are other conditions that are in the space that look like Alzheimer's that might not be Alzheimer's. The other thing that we're seeing now, and this helps differentiate between diseases, is the massive growth of AI. You know, last at Assembia, I was fortunate to be a guest host on the podcast.
Yeah.
And talked with Nested Knowledge about what they're doing to help synthesize pieces. We see a couple of exhibitors here at this meeting who are talking about using AI to streamline the onboarding process for their patients, recognizing, differentiating between different types of conditions with EMR data, and that's all great. And I think we need to continue to see that happen. But we also need to see AI root out the evil. And what I mean by the evil is there's so much deep fake stuff. People come to me all the time and say, I saw it on the internet, it must be true. Well, is it? And maybe we can turn some of these AI agents into agents of change to actually go through and say, you know what, this is out there. It's not really valid. It's not right. And how do we change the narrative on those pieces here? I think that's something that remains to be seen. And I think as we continue to learn more from these AI engines and what they can do, we're going to see more growth in those areas. So the last thing I want to talk about, Todd, and you are at the forefront of this, believe it or not, Todd, is the growth of podcasts. When I started interacting with you and meeting you about 5 years ago at one of the first podcasts, you were the only one out there in that space. And what I keep seeing nowadays is the growth and promulgation of podcasts for everybody. I see people doing weekly podcasts of what their company is doing. They're almost like an advertorial. We're disseminating different information as we all do. That's why we're on a podcast. But I find that when I talk to people out in the field, researchers, especially the younger people, they love soaking up the podcast as a way to get their information. And I know that, Todd, you've been very advocating doing a peer review on a lot of podcast materials to make sure it's the right material out there. Kind of goes to that AI use to validate what we're hearing and what we're seeing. And I'm just so glad to see that we have people like you and your team helping bring us to that next level of realization, communications, and then allowing us to benefit from the information that's shared.
Thank you for mentioning that. Evidence-based podcasting is a trademark that we have out that we're solidifying the seal, and then we're coming up with peer-reviewed standards that originally started with the book written by Dr. Bernadette Melnick of OSU. She actually has a consultancy now. She wrote a book called Evidence-Based Practice. So we're taking what is podcasting for the clinician, for the provider, for the collaborative, and we're saying that content to truly be evidence-based should be peer-reviewed. Anybody can buy themselves a nice fancy microphone and jump on a podcast and say whatever they're going to say, and I encourage that. But when you start going to higher levels of information absorption and you expect to listen to something and know that it's just as fortified as a journal article is, then if you're going to do that, it better be peer-reviewed.
That's so great that we're getting there and that you're driving that change. I remember back in the early 90s when I became one of the first health economics people at a pharma company. At that point in time, we would look at Medline articles, and almost every article would say, therefore, this product is cost effective. And I think that the journals and the medical literature and the researchers finally said, wait a minute, we have to really educate people about what cost effectiveness is. What are we actually saying? What are we promoting? And what are we allowing to be put in print? Because we all want to have a valid peer-reviewed journal. Well, we're peer reviewing everything. If we're not peer reviewing that portion, does it just mimic or make the rest of our communications less important? So I think that's great, the evidence-based movement here. We're going to still continue to put out information as often as we can in the different forums to make sure it gets out there. And we're going to ask people to challenge us. And we look forward to that. And thanks, Todd, for keeping us on that journey.
Well, thank you, Richard. And thanks for being part of the NASP 2025 here in Denver. I can't get away from you. Like, we were just at NACDS, Ryan Clarke, Keysource. Now we're at NASP.
Yeah, a lot of travel lately, but, it's good. Glad to see you again. You're doing the Lord's work for sure.
I'm just trying to spread the word, and that is, so many challenges in our pharmacy sector, and there's one sector that always brings me hope, even though there's challenges, and that is specialty pharmacy. And we are here at NASP in the booth in Denver. It's been a great conference. You guys have been busy. So why would Keysource? You're a source provider of products. You're getting people the products that they need. You're helping to kind of backfill when there's instances of shortages. You guys concentrate. I saw your booth at NACDS was always crowded. You had appointment after appointment. So why is it important to be part of NASP?
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head to start with. Is so many pharmacies are struggling right now. It's hard to stay profitable. It's hard to take care of your patients the way you want to take care of them, and that's why we come to places like NASP. And Sheila, Arquette, and her team do a great job every year of getting everybody in touch personally, up close. We don't have to book every 5-minute meetings like some of these other conferences we go to, but it's just great to see people face to face, and you can talk about your challenges, over a phone call or over a Teams meeting all day, but that face-to-face contact really helps people become comfortable with, what can you really do to help us out? And Keysource, we believe we can help people beyond just the retail side of things, but there's a lot of specialty generics coming to market, every year. There's more and more, and we just try to do our best to help those supply gaps, help them save a little bit of money where they can, and just create great partnerships. And a lot of those NACDS regional chains, it kind of goes hand in hand with NASP because a lot of them have their own specialty arm, right?
Yeah, they do.
So it's funny. There's a few people here we see, at NACDS, we have long dinners with, right, meetings, and we come here and we're like, hey guys, long time no see. It's been about 2.5 weeks.
That's right, and we're back.
Exactly.
Well, that's the world, and we have to touch each of the sectors because there's nuances that are very specific to specialty. I was really proud of the 3-part series that Pharmacy Podcast Network invested in with Keysource and the one and only Andy Crawford. We should have like a crowd cheering, Andy Crawford.
No, his head can't get any bigger than this.
Yes, we'll just blow his head up some more. But Andy was really dialing into specific challenges that you guys are really helping pharmacies to overcome in procurement, in products that are short out there that you can't find, and you're partnering with that. So how does that tie into specialty pharmacy?
Yeah, so, and kudos to Andy. He's taught me pretty much everything I've known the last 10 years I've been at Keysource. And every time I come to these conferences, he's getting pulled left and right about every 10 feet because everyone knows him, and he knows this industry very well. And as far as the specialty, arm goes, it's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different animal than some of the retail products you see out there. And just to have access really is a big key for some of these pharmacies, because there's a lot of, maybe I shouldn't get too deep into it, but a lot of vertical integration going on these days. And to have someone else that can say, all right, we have great partners and relationships with these manufacturers, and maybe they don't. Yeah, that's something we can kind of marry those two together and give them access to a product or better pricing to a product that normally they wouldn't have. Yeah, especially some of the up and coming specialty pharmacies, people that are just getting accredited and just starting what they want to do. It just helps to have that extra little helping hand on the side, and that's what Keysource can provide.
So you're listening to the show, you are in that category of either a startup specialty pharmacy or an expanding specialty pharmacy. Reach out to the Keysource team. Tell them you heard it here on the NASP podcast. Give a shout out to John Cena of the pharmacy world, Andy Crawford. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, no.
We'll just have to have like a sound bite that we'll just do that over and over again. Andy Crawford.
You've got to be good at editing. You can throw something in there.
We'll get Brady to do it for sure. Hey, thank you for spending time with me here at the NASP podcast.
It's been great. Appreciate you, buddy.
Hi, this is Sheila Arquette, and you are listening to the NASP podcast.
Hey Hey there, and wrapping up the show, this is the CEO of the NASP. Excited to have you back. Sheila, what an amazing event.
Thank you so much, Todd. Yes, it's so exciting. We spend an entire year preparing for this conference, and when we get on site and we get to see it all come together and to see the experience that our attendees and our sponsors and exhibitors are having, it's super, super exciting and very rewarding.
Yeah, there's so much going on. I was so impressed with how much activity coming out of the sessions was pouring into the exhibit hall. And it was very specific to some of those vendors who are strategically dialing in what's happening in specialty pharmacy. AI was all over the place, but for the first time, it's making more concrete sense and more connection, and it's actually being used. It's not just like, we're talking about what's coming. We're talking about what they're actually doing today. So that was amazing. Any highlights that you kind of wanted to mention to our NASP podcast listeners?
Sure. Everybody always asks me leading up to the conference, what's this year's theme? What's this year's theme? And we typically don't set a theme, but as I was walking around and I was listening to folks, and after our keynote presentations and the buzz after that, it was all about connection. Right. And everybody really touched on that. If I could have planned it, I couldn't have planned it better, because it all came together. And it's just about how important making those meaningful connections are, and how we come together, we collaborate, we work together to enhance patient care. One of our attendees told me that meaningful connection was the heartbeat of this conference. And I love that. And so we had so much going on. You're right. The educational sessions, just incredible. The speaker faculty, everything, all that they did to bring, right, the latest in evidence-based medicine and practices and changes, and, all of our sponsors and exhibitors. The exhibit hall was incredible. We do a little bit of fun throughout the conference. We also were able to give back, and we hosted Tina's Warriors and packed hope for those battling breast cancer. So I think there was a little mix of something for everybody, or at least I'm hoping.
Yes, I picked that up, and I was excited to also see how much collaboration that was going on in the exhibit hall with even other vendors that were getting together with people that were there that were combining kind of some of their solutions. And some of that was happening in the NASP podcast booth too. I did hear a lot of follow-up, more than ever, on the specialty pharmacist certification program and how important that is for really the future of specialty pharmacy, to really start digging down into specific disease conditions and rare diseases that pharmacists are part of those treatment teams. And you were talking about evidence-based, and of course, we're coming up with a standard, evidence-based podcasting, to assure what podcasts you're listening to have been peer-reviewed and they're based on good stuff. And that's just another element of bringing additional opportunity. So shout out to all those pharmacists out there who are saying, hey, I'd really like to dig deeper into hematology or a blood disorder, or really dig. So talk to us about that.
Sure. And so another shout out to the founders of NASP, right? Way back in 2010, 2011, when they started kind of talking about we need an association, they knew how important certification was going to be in the absence of a definition of specialty pharmacy. And we still struggle with that today, right? We have a general consensus, but we don't have an established and accepted definition. So certification is so important so that those pharmacists can differentiate themselves, right, from other pharmacists who are, community pharmacy experts and hospital pharmacy experts. And so I think we have definitely turned our eye to certification and certificate programs as well. At the end of this year, in the beginning of 2026, we're going to launch a certificate program for specialty pharmacy technicians. We're also working with some friends in Canada and launching a certificate program for those folks, as well as new grads, right, who are very interested in getting into specialty pharmacy, may not fulfill all the criteria to sit for the CSP exam and earn that credential. So it's kind of like a bridge. So definitely focused on, differentiating these folks who are, the stars of our industry.
So the place I spend most of my time, just because of our schedules and how busy things get, is on the exhibit floor. And I love being there. It's my favorite spot. And we got a bunch of interviews that have been part of this incredible series. A shout out to all of our guests who were part of the NASP Podcast 2025. Thank you so much for being part of it. Is there any organizations out there, Sheila, that you're like, wow, they really stepped up to help us kind of like pull this all together? Because our sponsors and the exhibits, the companies that are investing, they're part of that ecosystem, and I rely on them to bring me the information that they're kind of helping to build out. So
Absolutely. I mean, of course, right, those organizations who are like, our Diamond and Ruby and Sapphire sponsors, incredible, right, that, they step up and, they bring these exhibits or they sponsor some of the activities. They make it possible for us to host them. And I think this year we had so many new exhibitors, but then we're also those folks that have been with us, right, for the last, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. They continue to come back and they continue to round out that offering. And so just thankful to everybody, right? Because sometimes it's hard to know the investment somebody makes, right? Maybe is, the dollar amount is not as big as somebody else, but it still is a sacrifice, right? Or it's still like, it's the investment that they can make. So we are so thankful for all of that. And just for bringing that energy, for bringing that knowledge, for interacting with, their fellow sponsors and exhibitors, but then also all of the attendees. So I think this year it was just such an incredible group of people that came together to make it possible. We couldn't do it without any of them.
Yeah, and that makes me excited about what's coming and the momentum that we're coming out of the 2025 event, bringing us into the wrap up of 2025, and then preparing and starting to think about, how do we level up? How do we keep going? How do we serve our patients even better? For us, I'm just so thankful for sponsors who invest in helping us cover the show and be able to kind of dig down into content and deliver to you, the listener. So tell us about 2026. What's coming for the NASP's 2026 event?
Sure. So we really rely on our members and our previous attendees to help guide that, right? What is it that is impacting your business? What do you need to learn more about? What do you think is cutting edge, right? Our education committee does an incredible job, right, of taking in all of that feedback that we receive, looking at their own businesses, right, and their own areas of expertise, trying to project what's happening on the horizon. We have so much going on within healthcare, and so it's definitely a work in progress. I think this year the workshops that we hosted were very well received. We talk about accreditation, we talk about the art of infusion, specialty pharmacy law, next gen intelligence or technology, and like you said, the role of AI. Hospital health system specialty pharmacy, right, continues to be incredibly popular and continues to expand. And so, as we look to the future, we really rely on those folks that are coming, right, investing their time, investing their financial resources to tell us what they need. We also are rebranding the NASP annual meeting and expo. We are going to retire that name effective now. And as we look to the future, and all that the meeting offers, we are going to call our conference Inspire. And so each of those letters stands for something. It's innovation, networking, of course, specialty pharmacy in the middle, insights, research, and education. And so that is what we are focused on bringing, right, to this meeting when we all come together to learn and share best practices and to network. And so you'll see that, right? We're going to have that everywhere. We're going to continue to try to introduce that. And we're just trying to have a little bit of a differentiation between NASP, the organization, and then the NASP annual meeting and expo. And sometimes it gets a little bit confused and confounded. So while the conference is a huge part of who we are and what we do, it's not our entire identity.
Sheila, I love that. I love that. It actually inspires me as well. And we'll be covering that event as the Inspire cast launches off and really digs down into each of what that acronym means, and looking for leaders in specialty pharmacy and looking for pharmacists that are out there. If you're part of this event and you want to reach out to Sheila, you will have a story to tell. The NASP podcast really gets into those stories, and it's been wonderful to have you part of the network. All right, Sheila, thank you so much for rounding out the NASP podcast 2025. We appreciate you.
Awesome. I appreciate you too. And everybody mark your calendar, September 22nd through 25th. National Harbor, Maryland at the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center.
Thank you.
Thank you.